After months of anticipation, we have finally reached here, the inaugural season of the Marble Invite. 16 teams from 16 different marble competitions have come together to participate in this premier event, something we have never seen before. I am Ramen Powder from the Quadrilla Marble League, and I'll be joined by Angus from Tour de Endurance for the first two events.
Hello. What a wonderful honor it is to be here for the inaugural of one of the biggest crossovers we've seen in the marble sports recently, with several top competitors such as the Deep Divers from the QML and our hosts, Pesky's Marble Championships with the Surging Storms, bringing it all together. With this first event, the balancing, which Surging Storms are about to lead off in short order. There you see all the teams ready to begin on this wonderful endeavor.
Yeah, the biggest crossover in marble history, perhaps. You're right. The Surging Storms will show us how it's done, this balancing event, a classic in marble sports. I'm sure you know how it works, but all four members of the team will be going, and all four members will be getting a distance. And you can see the Surging Storms, they all veer off to the near side, but that's a pretty good mark to set the tone for the Marble Invites.
They all go pretty fast. 5.74, that is which seems like a very high score to start compared to what some other leagues have seen. So this is rough to go off of. We'll have to see what the other teams do, starting with the Valiant Vanillas, so the second run at least. Have to see, compared to 5.74, they're looking, two go off pretty, that was, a significantly less impressive performance compared to the hosts.
Yeah, the Valiant Vanillas from the Marble Sports Games, you might know them as two-time champions, but they are on the back foot compared to the Surging Storms at least. So 388, that's a respectable total, I'd have to think.
Yeah, Team Clarity now from the Born Network. Team Clarity, of course, haven't won anything, but they're here from other performances, and they have three veer off very quickly, with one going as far as it can, but I don't think it's going to be far enough to salvage this performance. Look at that, out of the gate, all screwed off to the far right, and 395, it's still good enough for second place.
Just barely ahead of the Valiant Vanillas. Team Clarity, they had their first three marbles veer off to the far side, then the last marble managed to go all the way to the end almost. And now we have the Eggs from the Snow Marbles competition. Bit of a wild card pick, but we'll see how they do. They have one very quickly fall off, but other three very quick and very far down the course. I think they're going to take the lead, and they have by a good margin. 5.77, the Eggs have taken the lead.
That was a very good run by those two marbles. It wasn't actually too far ahead of the Surging Storms, but a much more consistent performance gets them into first place. Now we have the Knights of Night coming up in run 5.
Knights of Night from the JBL Cup, you may know them. I have three still on, but they all veer off to the near side. We saw those three marbles, similar to the Eggs in the previous run. They got pretty far down the course, but Knights of Night just not far enough. So they do break 500, but it's only good enough for third place.
Now the Deep Divers have 1, 2, 3. They're all gone a lot earlier than what we've seen so far. So let's see how that went wrong. So Deep Divers, they just kind of splayed all over to the side, and a 370. Oh dear, 6th place out of 6. That is not a great start for the Deep Divers.
Yeah, the Deep Divers from the Quadrilla Marble League, but they're going to be on the back foot here in balancing. And you could see them in the angle that we saw, they were just playing off to either side. But now the Storm Chasers, how can they do? From the Marble Summer Championship, they will have two to the far side, two to the near, but all of them pretty consistent down to the middle to the far. And I think this will be a respectable total that they can be happy about.
They had a wonderful line going there, and they get 4th place. Only 4th? Goodness me, there's some very high scores going here. Storm Chasers had great formation straight down the middle of the beam, but only 4th place is a bit of a surprise. Now, the J Jockeys, this is definitely a wild card pick considering their recent performances, but they're very good in the funnels. Let's see how they do it in the balance. They get 3 going pretty far. The last 2 just wouldn't square off before they can get to the end. That should be another respectable total.
I think that's going to crack 500, and we've seen in the past totals, 500 is about what you want to break the podium. With 518, that is just enough to get third place and on the provisional podium. The Jade Jockeys are surely going to be happy with that performance, competing with some of the other big names in this tournament.
Now we're halfway through the game, we move on to run 9, Marine Team from Dolphins Marble Competition. We'll have to see how they go here. In the halfway point of the games, they have a good line at the start, but they start to veer off toward the near side. One almost gets to the end. We have not seen a single competitor make it to the finish podium yet. So that's something for these second half contenders to try and aim for, to bump themselves up into the standings.
Yes, of course, the beam constructed to be the greatest challenge for some of these great teams. An Norwegian team, they do slot into 5th place, just off 500, but that's only good enough for 5th place. You can see how competitive some of these teams have brought their A games here. Now, Stargazers from Jack's Marble Games, they have 3 on the board, 2 almost make it to the end. And once again, they veer off just to the near side, but I think that's a decent run. Should slot them in the middle of the pack.
Well, it's a bit less in the middle, 7 out of 10, not a great start. They had 1 fly off pretty much immediately. They had 2 go pretty far, but they've had several go far, just like that. So, not the best run now. The Blood Moons, round 11 of 16 from Seaweeds Marble Association. Let's see how they can do. This is a discontinued competition, so nice to see them back. They have 2 go very far, just like several teams, but those 2 early drop-offs are going to be a setback for their score.
I think those 2 marbles that stayed on for so long, they impeded each other by that bump, and you could see them losing so much speed going to the finish. They could have potentially made it all the way to the end, and the first 2 marbles did end up damaging their run a bit, but I think those 2 marbles that made it all the way so far will manage to be a respectable total for them. Now the Salmons run 12 of 16 as we go into the waning rounds of balancing.
That is a fantastic score there, you see. It is about time. In run 12 of 16, the Salmons have got 2 finishes and also some very respectable runs from their other marbles. That is surely going to be a podium contender, maybe even a victory contender, and it is 654 is their total.
You can see just how rewarding finishing is. You could see those 2 marbles, unlike the previous runs, they did not impede each other. They stayed out of each other's way, and they had the speed to get all the way to the finish. And now, what can the Volcanoes do to follow up? They have a mammoth total to follow up. Volcanoes from the Model Team Cup, they have 2 pretty far down the course. They veered to the near side like many of the previous teams, but it's not going to challenge for much more than mid-pack.
Yeah, not that 13 for Volcanoes. They couldn't get as far as some of the other ones did. They all fell off toward the middle rather than toward the end, so a setback for sure as we move on to the final 3 runs. Silver Leeches from Orbit's Marble Run is going to make run 14 of 16, but they have great totals to make up. Let's see how they can do. They have 1-2 go off immediately. These last 2 are going to try and pull through. I don't think it's going to be enough to get anywhere near out of the mid-pack.
Their best model is very close. I think the closest model we've seen to get to the end without actually getting the full 200 points. But they do get only 408, so that is one of the poorer runs we have seen today. You can see just how competitive. Even a score of 500 is not good enough to slot on the podium. As we go into the final 2 runs of the day.
Penultimate run, the Wishful Spheroid's going to go on now. Let's see what they can do. Under the beam, they've got a nice line going. It's a very nice line. It holds for a very long time, and look at that. We just saw the closest non-finisher we've seen so far, but I think they just followed that up by pretty much bumping into the finishing podium. That's going to surely contend for top 5, but will it contend for top 3? Yes, it does. 2nd place for the Wishful Spheroids. That is a confirmed podium finish.
I think that tailgating marble saw how many previous teams veered off to the near side, and they tried to get as far to the far side, but so that when they inevitably curved back, it was just so close to the finishing position, and it definitely paid dividends for them. But now for the final runners of the day, Crimson Company, what can they do to get on the podium? Can they have 3 off very quickly? And the 4th marble is not going to be able to challenge the Crimson Company. It's going to be on the back foot from event 1.
That was a very poor result for a final runner. In fact, it's 16th place. Oh dear, Crimson Company. After probably the worst start imaginable. 16th out of 16 runs is not how you want to begin, but there's still 7 events to bring back, so they're definitely nowhere near out of it. But congratulations to the Salmons, who win the first gold of the marble invite, to the Wishful Spheroids and the Eggs rounding out the podium.
The hosts surging storms just off the podium, but they can still be very proud of what they've done here. But congratulations to the podium finishers.
So a great start for the marble invites by the Salmons and Wishful Spheroids, and teams like Crimson Company, Jade Jockeys and Deep Divers has some catching up to do. But it is early days, so naturally Salmons 25 to 20, Wishful Spheroids, Eggs and 15, 13 Storms. The hosts are right there. But now we move on to the second event. Next time will be the sprint. We will see you for that one.